Hey everyone, Aisha here. So I just wanted to send some encouragement to pregnant and new single moms on Mother's Day, because I understand that the holidays can be a very difficult and emotional time for new and pregnant single moms. Because I remember when I was pregnant and when I celebrated my first Mother's Day, I was actually pregnant. And because I was pregnant, because I was unwed, and as a member of the church, who served in the church, who went to church faithfully, I really felt a lot of shame, condemnation, and embarrassment around being a single mom in the church. And so I wondered if God loved me. I wondered if, he would care for me and my kids. And I just struggled with the shame and the condemnation and the embarrassment. And especially when I began to show, people would say things like, "Oh, is the father excited? Is he excited?" And each time someone said that, I just said, "Oh, he's not around." And it was like this constant reminder that he had abandoned us. And so I just struggled a lot with, will God abandon me and my kids like their dad did? And just really feeling like I let God down because I was a single mom and was unmarried. And so one day this one lady looked at me she was talking to me and looked me straight in the eyes and said, "God is the father to the fatherless, a defender of widows," right? And then she told me that single moms are the modern day widows. And for me, that was transformational, because at that point I began to remember all the promises that God gave children. I started to remember all the promises that God gave widows. And so I knew at that point that God would never leave us nor forsake us. He would not abandon us. He would not abandon us like their dad did. And so when it came to holidays, Mother's Day was different for me than Father's Day. And I'll make a separate video about Father's Day closer to then. But I also encourage you to check out my book, Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood. Because in that book, I also talk about, very detailed in terms of navigating your first Mother's Day and Father's Day as a single mom. So I really think that that particular chapter, chapter 23, would be really, really helpful for you. But I wanted to just share this with you. Mother's Day was interesting for me because it brought up a lot of emotions, but it brought up this overcompensation, right? It brought up this feelings of pride, for self-sufficiency, this, I don't need no one else. I can do it all by myself, let me celebrate me because I chose to parent, forget him. I chose to say, so let's celebrate me. Hey, let's celebrate me as the mom who decided to parent, right? So it was very unhealthy. It was like this toxic celebration that I really used to do in terms of how I celebrated motherhood, especially the first motherhood, because I'm like, he's gone, I'm just going to celebrate myself extra hard because I stayed. And it really came from this place of unhealed pain. It really came from this place of unforgiveness. It really came from this place of pride, bitterness, resentment, and anger. And so although it is very valid, very okay to feel pain and hurt as a single mom on Mother's Day or Father's Day for that matter, or any other holiday, right? It is really important for us to be able to take that pain and take it to the Lord. I remember one day I was at church. And so church was really important to me, especially while I was going through this particular stage, because it seemed like there was something that the pastor would say or the choir would sing that would give me this bit of encouragement to really reevaluate my thoughts and to look at things differently from a place of healing and wholeness. And so one of the things that I had to learn was that it's not my job to be super mom. It's not my job to be the mom and the dad. It is not my job to be everything to my kids. It's just not. because number one, kids have a mom and a dad for a reason, right? We serve two very unique and different roles. And we also have God as the ultimate father. So when I was looking at things from being this super mom, this all, encompassing figure, right? God was not in that, right? He was there, but I wasn't welcoming him in because I was trying to do everything. I was looking to myself, really idolizing myself and the fact that I didn't have an abortion. So I really wanted to be celebrated, affirmed, and just really validated by other people rather than seeking my validation in God. And so one of the things that really helped to be able to change my perspective, especially when I was pregnant, was I started to understand my feelings and the impact that my feelings had on my children. Because our children, especially when they're in the womb, our children eat everything that we eat, right? Biology says that they're connected to the mother's womb through an umbilical cord, right? And so that umbilical cord allows the child to eat everything that the mom is eating. It allows the child to get nutrients to be able to feed the child, right? And so for me, I started to have this understanding that if my children can literally get the nutrients, or if I wasn't eating healthy, whatever it was that I was eating, if that was going into their bodies as physical food, what was going into their bodies through spiritual food? By me being so bitter and angry and prideful and having this desire to be celebrated by all of these other people because I was deeply insecure about being pregnant, unwed, and in the church, and as a single mom whose children's father had just walked out. And so for me, when I began to recognize that the way I handled Mother's Day was so incredibly toxic, it was so rooted in bitterness, and that bitterness, if my kids were eating what I was eating physically, then it must have meant that my children were eating what I was eating spiritually, and I did not want to pass on through the umbilical cord feelings of bitterness, shame, unworthiness, pride, self-sufficiency, and a need to be able to put myself in the place of God. And so that began to help me. I started to realize that I was not meant to carry all of the things that I was trying to carry in motherhood, right? As a new mom. And so this feeling and this belief that I can do it on my own, this belief in, I think it also is rooted in, this black woman syndrome, this strong black woman syndrome, that as a black woman, when we go through trials and tribulations, we just get stronger, right? We just put on the big girl panties, keep on going. We're strong. We don't need any help. We can do it all by ourselves. I think that played a big role in it as well, because I didn't want to talk about how I felt. I had a therapist and everything, and that really began to help me. But it was very difficult for me to also be able to process and articulate the things that I was feeling. And so sometimes the hurt and the pain came out in a way of toxic, over-the-top celebration for Mother's Day, to be able to, woo, yay, it's me, look at how look at how I stayed, so forget him, right? And really bashing him in the process, and that wasn't healthy. And so one of the things that I realized too, and I talk about this in the book, is that I had to understand that even though I felt alone, even though I felt abandoned, even though I was hurting, even though I struggled to trust other people because he walked out on me, that I was never truly alone because God was with me. God was with me. And one of the ways that I began to have a healthier relationship with Mother's Day, and even if you look back on some of my own posts, it's like, yeah, celebrate Mother's Day, celebrate moms, right? But we have to be able to do that in a healthy way. So I encourage you that if you're struggling with Mother's Day, if you're engaging in over the top toxic celebration of you and how great you are, that was really how it was. It was like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at how great I am. He tried to force me to have an abortion, but I had my babies. I stayed. So everyone recognize recognize me, cheer for me, yay, yay, yay. And let's everybody throw up, just like hate him, right? Let's just all hate him. Like that was my attitude. But God doesn't call us to a place of bitterness. God doesn't call us to a place of resentment. God doesn't call us to shame. The Bible said there is no condemnation for those in Christ. So why is it that we carry shame and condemnation as single moms? Why? Because sometimes the church tries to shame us. Sometimes the world tries to shame us. Sometimes TV tries to shame us. And if you went through it like I did, the baby's father, I had twins, so children's father tried to shame me for being a single mom. So for me, Mother's Day was like a day that I didn't have to feel shame, because guess what? I was a mom. Mother's Day isn't limited to married moms. Mother's Day is for all moms, whether you're single, widowed, married, divorced, it doesn't matter. As long as you are a mom, even if you're an adopted mom, we are grandmas, right? We are celebrating all the women who are moms. And so for me, Mother's Day became so incredibly liberating, because I'm like, this is the one day that I don't have to feel shame. This is the one day that I don't have to feel condemnation. This is the one day that I can celebrate myself. But what I realized later on in my process of healing, that the way I celebrated was rooted in feelings of bitterness, shame, condemnation, and hurt, and abandonment. So what I needed to do was to go deep, to try and understand the source of my pain. And it's probably obvious, right? Got pregnant right after I quit my job, my 6-figure job, to become a full-time entrepreneur. Ended up getting pregnant, and a couple of months later, when I was 4 months pregnant, their dad walked out. So that was painful, right? But as I began to go on this healing journey of mine, I realized that the source of my pain wasn't just from him. The source of my pain, like, he became like the trigger that caused me to shut down emotionally and really just explode with bitterness and anger. But that pain, as I began to retrace the pain and where it came from more than just that. It came from more than just that. It came from living a life rooted in perfectionism and feeling like I didn't measure up, or that I wasn't good enough if I couldn't perform in a certain way, if I wasn't getting accolades. It came from a place of being bullied when I was a kid for wearing non-name brand shoes. It came from a place of dealing with workplace bullying. So that ended up becoming the thing, right, that kind of set up a lot of different things in motion. But truthfully, it began a lot earlier. And so once I began to understand and untangle the roots of the pain, and began to look at how holidays triggered me, look at how Mother's Day triggered me, look at how Father's Day triggered me, it helped me to be able to get to a place where I was able to begin to heal from the pain and the things that had hurt for far too long. But the other part of that was that I had to recognize that how I felt was okay. It was neither good nor bad. It just was what it was. It just was what it was. And I didn't have to shame myself for being angry. I didn't have to shame myself for being bitter. I didn't have to shame myself for hoping for some sort of communication or happy Mother's Day text when I was pregnant, right? I didn't have to shame myself for that. I just recognized that where I was emotionally was okay, but the emotions became like a pointer, like to be like, okay, this is where you need to laser in on how you need to heal. And then I was able to take that up with my therapist and begin to unpack all of these different feelings. And then I also found something to celebrate. Find something to celebrate in a healthy way, like not necessarily celebrating like, hey, look at me and how awesome I am and look how terrible he is. And the celebration didn't have to be about that. The celebration could be like, okay, I have You know, at the time when I was pregnant, I have 2 healthy kids growing in my womb. God chose me to be a mother. And then the other thing that really helped me was that a lady from church said that God is the giver of life. And when I realized that my kids weren't a mistake, because God is the giver of the life, only God can give life. And that God saw my children fit to be here, and he saw me fit to be a mom, regardless of what my circumstances and marital situation was. It gave me something to celebrate for real, because I was going to be an amazing, like a mom, chosen out of every woman in this whole world to steward the lives of these 2 children. That's something to celebrate. Something to celebrate is God being there with me, celebrating my own mom, celebrating my grandma. And I understand that not everyone, you know, Mother's Day might be painful, because it might remind people what was lost. In the beginning, it reminded me of the, you know, how I always envisioned myself having kids, married in a 2-parent household. So it was also a reminder of, like, that didn't happen. It didn't happen. It doesn't mean that it will never happen, right? It doesn't mean that I will never get married, right? It doesn't mean that. But what it means is that the way it happened was not what I ever envisioned. And so I almost had to, like, I really actually had to mourn the loss of what I thought giving birth was going to be like, what I thought bringing children into this world was going to be like. Just like some of you might be mourning the loss of an earthly parent. Some of you might be mourning the loss of a grandparent. We also mourn the loss of relationships. Sometimes we mourn what we thought life was going to be, while recognizing that God is still in control. Those dreams that we thought might have died, they don't have to die. They can just look differently. And so we have to be able to shift our mindset to the possibilities, right? To the goodness in this world, and focus on healing, so that the celebration of Mother's Day isn't rooted in pain. It's not rooted in bitterness. It's not rooted in some toxic celebratory thing. And it's not rooted in, look at me and how grand I am and how terrible he is, right? But it can be a healthy, beautiful celebration of life, and the fact that God chose you out of everyone in this world to be there for your children, regardless of what he does. God already knew whether that man will leave or stay, leave or go. He knew. Not leave or, I didn't mean to say leave or go. It's the same thing. But he knew that he was going to leave or stay. So what you're called to do is to move forward in peace and wholeness, and who God has created you to be, and fill your heart up with so much love. Love of the Father, love from the Son, Jesus Christ, and focusing on the love that we have for our children, while trusting that God is going to give us every single thing that we need to make it through. And the last thing I want to say is that as a single mom, don't allow anyone to shame you or condemn you, or to tell you that you aren't good enough, or to tell you who you will be or who your children will be as a single mom. It's a lie. It does not have to be like that, because God did not bring you this far to abandon you. He loves you. He is the father to the fatherless, the defender of widows. And when I think about the word defender, right? I think about war, like how, like, we have the people with the swords and stuff. Defender. I'm going to see if I can pull up a definition of defender real quick, because that just came to my, and so I want to, defender. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. It says a person or person who defends something, a defender of family values. Let me see. I'm gonna look it up. Something different. Webster's 18. I really like the Webster's 1828 dictionary, because it's really good. Defender. Okay, defender comes up as a noun. One who defends by opposition, one who maintains, supports, protects, vindicates, an asserter, a vindicator, either by arms or arguments, a champion or an advocate. Oh, this is so good. I may have to do a whole YouTube video on this. But one who defends by opposition. So our role as a mom is we're supposed to defend our kids against opposition from people, places, things that try and speak against them and their destiny. We also maintain, we support, we protect our children. But think about this, right? Vindicator, right? But this is the defender of widows, right? It's speaking about God. So God defends us by opposing the things that oppose us. God maintains and supports and protects and vindicates us. And that doesn't change because you're a single mom. And so he vindicates us. He's our champion. He's our advocate. And so when we think about that, God is that for us. God is that for our children. But he's also called for us to be that role in the lives of our children as well. So celebrate the self that you celebrate the fact that you're a mom. And by the grace of God, you get to maintain, support, protect, and vindicate your children. You get to be a champion for your children and an advocate for your children. And that is honestly beautiful. None of that is rooted in fear. None of that is rooted in toxicity. None of that is rooted in anger. None of that is rooted in bitterness. And so I just wanted to encourage you with that on this Mother's Day. So definitely pick up the book, Navigating the Impossible, Single Mom, Survival Guide for Single Moms from Pregnancy Through the First Year of Motherhood. It is on Amazon. So yeah, definitely head over to Amazon, pick up the book. And I encourage you to like, subscribe, subscribe, share this video, and leave a comment and let me know how this has encouraged you. Have a good one.